I just taken the module out of the box. I just wanted to show you that real quick. I was concerned about a bracket, but it's already molded right into the back of the module. This little plastic piece here will go right down into that clamp there. There's a port here. I'm assuming that's where the big snake goes for all the input cables. So that should leave the back fairly uncluttered. Let's take a look at that. We've got a headphone jack. We've got our main outs, left and right channel. We've got a little aux in there, like if you have an iPod you want to connect in and play along with it, you could use the aux in. Two additional trigger inputs. Not 100% certain on those. I have read a little bit about them. I believe it gives you some expansion for maybe adding another pad or something like that, using in these miscellaneous perk pads. Although I'm wondering if maybe when I hook up the major primary cable snake, if any of those plugs actually go into there. Because I did read that maybe one or two of them is already in use by some of the multi-zone pads. I'm not really sure. I'll definitely be doing more videos and blogs about that. We have a MIDI in. I'm assuming you could trigger the sounds of this from other devices. The USB output, if you want to hook it up to your laptop and use like a drum module. Like I think the Easy Drummer Lite software is supposed to be included, or maybe at least a license key is, so you can go download it so you could trigger other sounds with a package like Easy Drummer. And then we have our power input and power switch. Not sure what this thing is right here, maybe kind of fuse or something. Anyway, it feels very lightweight. Oh, there is a power adapter in there as well. Tempo wheel, volume knob, all the stop-start buttons, metronome on and off, drum kit select. I'll be doing more in-depth reviews of that later on. Just wanted to show you. I mentioned in the previous clip about the Easy Drummer software. It does include this little card. Shows you how to log into tunetrack.com, and there's a serial number up top here, which you can register your product, give it the serial number, and it'll let you download the Easy Drummer Lite software. And then it tells you about the upgrading to the Easy Drummer full version. You can purchase that upgrade separately, but the license number is included, so you can definitely get that software, hook it up to your computer, and play along. I don't know that Easy Drummer Lite works on its own. I think you might need to have because it's considered a plug-in, I believe, and so I think you need to host it inside of another program. Now the Alesis mixer I just bought, I just also purchased the Alesis Multi-Mix USB effects. That came with a copy of Cubase LE, and I believe the Cubase LE can be used to host this Easy Drummer plugin. So I should have all the software I need to test that out. Alright, here we go. I've got the module mounted, powered up. I've got the cable snake installed and ran all the cables. The only issue I really had with the whole setup that didn't seem to work out is this right here, the end of the cable snake, where it screws up into the module. These little thumb screws don't want to seem to go all the way up in there. They just kind of, they're in like a little bit and the thread's caught, but then they just kind of sit and spin. Like I could pull this module and it would come out by 1/4 of an inch or so. So that's kind of weird. Hopefully it'll hold up. I guess, since I'm not hitting the module, hopefully it's not going to be knocking it loose and just the friction will hold it in, but we'll see how that goes. So big bundle of cables, and I'm using the little Velcro ties that they included, which is a nice touch. I do have a giant bundle of these that I also bought that I'm planning to go around and probably tighten things up a little bit and try to control the cords as much as I can. But everything is labeled, so we can see right up in here. This is the hi-hat jack, and it's labeled hi-hat. I don't know if it's focusing on that or not. But they're all labeled hi-hat, snare, tom 1, tom 2, kick, etc. And they just plug in right underneath. Most of them are just a single mono cable like this, but some that I mentioned are a stereo cable, meaning it's a 2-zone trigger. Like the snare is a stereo 2-zone. I think the crash, the ride, since they all have like the bells and chokes and little extra pieces. And there seems to be plenty of length. Like, I can't imagine that you would run short of cable trying to get it, anywhere that's on the rack. I think there's probably enough length for everything. So I just kind of draped the whole thing all across the main rack, and then sort of went back and peeled them off one at a time to get them to where I needed. So, I got them Velcroed around here to support them. And again, I'll try to tighten that up with some more Velcro ties later on. There's one down to the pedal for the hi-hat, one here for the kick drum. Speaking of the kick drum, I had another little issue just getting this is an old Pearl pedal, probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 years old. I've had forever. I couldn't really open the little, the clamp that would go on the hoop of the bass drum. I opened it as far as it could, and it still barely wants to fit onto this metal plate. And I tightened it on, as far as it'll go on the little edge there, so we'll see how that holds up. Maybe I just need to, because it's got a rubber pad that's on the Alesis metal plate. It's a very thick rubber pad, but also inside of my clamp I've got a very thick rubber pad, so maybe I just take off one of those rubber pads. Don't need the rubber on rubber, I guess. But I'll try it, see how it goes. Alright, so I think I got it all assembled. Now I'm just going to get some audio hooked up. Really anxious to hear how it's going to sound. Okay, here we are back with the drum set. It's actually a whole 24 hours later. I kind of got so excited with the new kit that I didn't make any more videos yesterday. It was so much fun to play around with it and go through all the sounds and all that kind of stuff that I just didn't make any more videos. So I wanted to follow up and give you my initial reactions. I'm still going around and kind of getting things positioned where they need to be, raising the bars a little bit, moving the drums in or out a little bit, trying to get everything in the proper place. Being a traditional acoustic drummer for so long, it is kind of cool to have a separate pedal that's not attached to the hi-hat, so you can put the hi-hat anywhere. It doesn't have to be right on top of the pedal. It's kind of nice that it's a separate item just connected by a cable, so kind of like that flexibility. Got my double pedals set up. These are my old Pearl pedals again. This is probably my biggest issue so far, is just working out the bass drum. I'd mentioned in the previous clip connecting the pedal to the metal tab at the bottom of the trigger pad. The rubber pad that comes with it is too big for my pedal to clamp onto it, so I just kind of peeled that off. It was sort of stuck on, that's it, laying there next to the screwdriver. It was kind of stuck on crooked anyway, so I had already peeled it off once. It's just stuck on with some tacky glue. It was kind of put on crooked initially, so I peeled it off anyway once, then I just peeled it off again and leave it sitting there. And I've got a couple other little strips of thinner rubber that I put on the top and bottom of the metal tab. And now my bass drum is clamped to that. It seems to be doing a little better job of holding it tightly and not coming off of the pedal. I think, too, just myself adjusting from not hammering on the pedals to make the sound, just trying to go easy on them. It's not causing it to want to come off so much. So that's probably something still to work on. And the whole pedal itself seems to move around a little bit, even though I've got my little spikes are sticking down, and there's spikes on the trigger brace itself. I got to work on that a little bit and maybe find some other rug to put them on that would help keep things a little better, because it is skating around a little bit. But as I'm adjusting more to playing on very sensitive electronic pads, I'll be adjusting my style not to thump so much and not have to work so hard. I haven't played a whole lot in the last 5 to 10 years, just a little bit here and there, or playing the Guitar Hero and Rock Band drums. So kind of getting readjusted to these and playing in an easier style. The other thing you'll notice is there's not a single mark on any of these pads. I've been playing them for several hours now, yesterday and today, and even the white one is still all pure white. There's no stick marks or anything. There's a little dust or something, and anytime I do think I see a little mark, I just rub it with my finger and it comes off. So it's just like some wood dust coming off the sticks or something. But yeah, the pads are all still in perfect shape. No indication that I've been playing on them, so that's very impressive. Anxious to see how long that will hold up. So yeah, I got it hooked up to just an old stereo for now with some big speakers, and I've been playing along with that, and it sounds great. I'm not going to do a full review of the module just yet, but certainly play a few things to give you an idea. Dual zone on this, so I can hit the center or the rim. And you can program the rim to whatever you want. If you want to make it a click for like a cross stick sound, or a cowbell, or whatever you want, it's totally flexible. Would be nice if the toms were all dual zone like that, so you could assign some more accessory sounds to the rims, but that's not available on this kit. I think maybe if I got the DM8 Pro, or certainly some of the higher ones, you've got rims on all those pads, so you could assign, you know, horn hits, cowbells, and those kind of things. But, you know, I think I've got enough to fool with for now. Hi-hat is nice. And you can adjust the trim on that. Initially, when you go through the calibration of the hi-hat pedal, you hold the pedal wide open and hit calibrate, then you close the pedal and hit calibrate, so it, you know, it reads the full range of motion. But that leaves your pedal hanging really wide open. And I typically left my pedals, you know, partially closed, so that if I'm doing double bass, I get a nice, you know, metal sound out of the cymbal. You kind of get that nice kind of close ringing sound. If they were wide open, they would just kind of clang together randomly. So you can go into the functions in there, you know, not to get into the module too much. It was in trigger setup for the hi-hat, in the calibration area under trim, and you can adjust these open and closed values, and I raised the open value up higher to like 85 or so, and that's where you can control how open it is. But I'll cover more of that in future videos. But you can, you know, there's all sorts of, you know, aside from the actual sounds that are being produced, there's all sorts of controls for the triggers, how sensitive they are, how much crosstalk if you have sounds bleeding into other areas. Like I had an issue when I was hitting my hi-hat, it was sometimes triggering my snare drum, so I just went into the crosstalk settings for the hi-hat and told it to send less crosstalk, because there's receive crosstalk and there's send crosstalk, so I told it to send less crosstalk, and it you know, eliminated that, so then I was only getting hi-hat sounds off my hi-hat. And I had an issue with my the bass drum pedal. That was part of the initial frustration with the bass too, is it made a fluttering sound. I was, you know, probably partially, you know, the head not hitting at a solid angle. It's kind of tipping forward into that pad a little bit. So it was kind of fluttering, and I was getting multiple little hits when I wasn't intending it to. But there's also a setting under the trigger setup. Go to the bass drum. Kick, go to the trigger menu, and it was this re-trigger setting. Currently got it on 65. The default was lower, and basically what that is that's the time between two hits. So snare drum, you'd want that re-trigger setting lower so that you can play really, really fast hits on the snare drum. But the bass drum, you're probably not doing real super fast hits, even if you're just doing standard, you know, double bass stuff. You're not hitting them so close together. So when I adjusted that re-trigger time, it told it, you know, if you hear a sound that's, you know, too soon after that initial sound, don't play that sound because it's probably an error. So adjusted that re-trigger high enough, and now I just get, you know, one hit, and I can still, you know, play all the quick hits or double bass. So I can still get all that just fine. It just eliminates all that little fluttering that the bass beater was doing. So yeah, I just had to take care of some of those initial trigger things, little crosstalk, hi-hat calibration, bass beater calibration, and that definitely, you know, made you much more comfortable and made things feel a little more normal and natural.